Welcome to yet another episode of The Serial Design. We have architect Ashwini Hublikar again, and today we are going to discuss about time management, a designer's block, and how to be a productive designer. Also, hit the subscribe button. Please feel free to drop in any ideas in the comment section right below. Thank you. Welcome to Serial Design. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Devanshi, for having me.
So, so I've already given an introduction to our viewers about you. So I would like to start with this conversation by saying, we generally have this habit of scrolling through Instagram, through articles, through blogs, because there are a lot of design exposure we have, and we keep on seeing this word which comes across called aesthetics. I want to know your views on the word aesthetics.
Okay, so aesthetic means making it look pretty. But for me, design is beyond that. So it's something like if you have an object and you just beautify it, that's not the main aim of design. The main aim is to figure out a problem, then provide a solution, a unique solution which is specific to that particular situation, to that particular person or the space. And that's how I feel design is more impactful. So if you just look at it as something which looks pretty, it's not going to be helpful in that way. And for me, it does not equate to design. Aesthetic and design are not synonyms. Design is much, much, much more than that. It's the same difference between having a skill of drawing versus being an artist. Being an artist is much more, or a painter is much more than just drawing few sketches. Even though you might be good at sketches, does not mean that you're a painter.
So aesthetic, what you're saying, so aesthetic is as important to an interior designer as it's to an artist or a person who's in basically a design field for that matter. Like, so aesthetic, when we say aesthetic art also we say, so basically it's art which is good looking, that's what you're trying to say, or pretty,
No, I am
or
saying
that also
it's
has
not
its,
actually, because that's
so
what.
design is not
Yeah, so the aim
aesthetic.
is not to just look pretty. Yes, you.
So I think that's a misconception, I think,
Yeah.
which people have. They relate
Yes.
good aesthetics to good design, which is a
May, at
misconception.
least in the field of architecture, I would say how you make a person feel within that space is more important than just how the things look. How, or you
Yeah.
having local context, having local materials, all those things play a much more important role. Giving an atmosphere which is climate conducive, all those things matter much more than something just which is pretty looking.
Yes.
So, and I guess we have a lot many architects. In fact, all of Charles Correa's work, if you see, it's an example of that. It's a wonderful example of that.
So, like, while talking of aesthetics, now we are, I think, leading to basically a user-centric design. मतलब
Yes.
एक user होता है, उसके इर्द गिर्द डिजाइन बनता है.
Ji.
That's what we are trying to
Yes.
say here. All right. Also, like while talking about aesthetics and these blogs and posts, people tend to explain their design. So, is that a design process? Like explaining the design is also a part of designing process?
Of course. Totally. Because how did you arrive at that design? That it's there are 100 or 1,000 ways to do a problem or solve a problem or do a design, but why did you choose that particular way? And I guess the designer came up with that final one. Before that, he must have done at least 10 alterations. And why did he decide on that one? Why? Because there's a process to it, or he feels that it fits the job perfectly. That's the reason. So why he feels that way and how did he arrive at that definitely needs to be conveyed, and that is a very strong base which is required for any successful design.
So that basically a good design process.
Yes.
So, like, would you share your personal design process? Like, say, for example, if you've got like a project, say it's an office for that matter, like because you've done a lot of corporate offices.
Yes, I have.
So is there a typical design process which you can like follow, or which you follow?
So how I approach a corporate interior design project would be, first of all, I would like to understand the client. So understanding the client is the most important thing. So unless and until you don't realize what is the age group of the clientele you are working for, or the kind of employees, what is the kind of work atmosphere they are looking at, it is more serious, it is more casual. So each of the corporates would have their own personality, and it's very evident, and they have it kind of mentioned because they want that kind of feel within their office. So once you catch that pulse, then it becomes much more simpler to understand what works for them. So when we work both in tandem, the client ideologies, and then that you convert into the design realities, or built forms, then the design, I feel, becomes a lot more successful for me. As per, otherwise it's just either my notion of what an ideal office is. So there is no ideal office or ideal corporate interior. So something that works for you may not work for something else. So we just need to identify that. So being client specific is very important. So doing your research, client research, and then deriving your concept based on those researches is the way I follow.
Can you give us an example of this? Say for example, I'm giving an example. Say Netflix. I'm designing something for Netflix. So would that be different from say a pharmaceutical company? I'm just giving a...
Definitely.
So do you, how is that different?
So
what would be different?
It's definitely, first of all, the work culture that I already spoke about, but beyond that, the kind of work these people do within those spaces. So a pharmaceutical company, probably they are more research oriented. So either they are research, or there's documentation, or they are into marketing. So these are the kind of things which would happen in their corporate culture. Whereas in Netflix, I understand there would be marketing and all, but the kind of people visiting these offices and their workflow, or their what can I say, the parameters on which they work is completely different, and definitely the age group. So
Age group,
yeah, so pharmaceutical company, maybe the researchers are a little bit more senior, and they have to follow a system
So maybe their
irrespective.
PhD, they've done their PhD,
Ideally,
doctorate.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you like it, don't like it, you have to follow a system, because research demands that, at least the clinical research which we are talking about. Whereas probably Netflix would have a much more casual approach to the whole thing. So within the same space also, if I'm designing for two different things, it becomes very
The
difficult.
client brief, what we say,
Yeah.
a lot of designers, I'm sure they know the client brief.
Yeah.
It's two different things. So sometimes you have to make your own client brief. As you said,
Yeah.
corporates you have to make your own. You have to research it down yourself and make the client brief.
Yeah, because sometimes, what happens is even they are not aware of what exactly they are looking at. What they come up with as a brief is, I need these number of cabins, I need these number of workstations and
Correct.
cubicles, and I need one cafeteria. This is all physical requirement.
Correct.
But somehow we need to capture the soul, the essence of their work ethics, which is
Right.
predominant. And you need to, on your own, research the client.
Works. Same thing now that we do residential. So now, a lot of, at least my friends, or the people I have met, the client I have, they always have this thing, they have a Pinterest board, they have a few references. This is the most typical kind of a Pinterest board idea, that they want to share. This is how we want the study table to be. So a corporate brief, as we discussed, they just give number of cabinets, whereas here you get this entire theme, design, look, feel, everything. So how do you deal with that then?
Yeah, sometimes some clients are really a lot more passionate.
Yeah.
Some clients, but do catch a nerve. So you have clients who are well read, well traveled. So then going along with the client flow, when you feel that it really matches what they are looking out for, then it is okay. But most of the times they they look at something and they want it, but somehow that space does not justify it, or
Correct.
the kind of use they want out of their house is different. So it's a classic example I give. You look at any actor, actress, and you feel they look good, and that in that dress doesn't mean that same dress is going to look great on you, because it's their
Yeah.
body shape, your aesthetic sense, everything is different. So
So same, you're relating it to a
yeah,
residential
yeah,
house
yeah,
that
yeah.
maybe the client feels it's fit for them,
Yeah.
but actually,
It's most of the times, they just like it, they like the picture. But when they would actually, when it is made, they would
yeah,
probably more not like it. So as a
correct.
designers, I think it's our duty to guide them through this and make them realize that this works for them, great, but it does not work for you.
So you have to take a stand basically.
Yes, I
Yeah,
think we should, because we are the experts here. You don't go to a doctor and tell him that you need to perform this surgery on me. He decides,
he
right?
decides. Yeah.
Similarly, we are the professionals here. So now that they have hired us and spent money, rather make use of that, isn't it?
Correct. So basically, also a designer. So when you talk about aesthetic sense, so does the designer have an aesthetic sense of its own, or it comes with experience? I mean,
So I think there are two ways to do it. So it's like once I develop, this happens at a much later stage when you have a decent body of work and you have developed a sense of style or the kind of work you do. Then the clients also, they know that this is your style, and the similar kind of clients approach you. So then it is more like an extension of your design ideologies also. But initially, when even you are not very clear about what is your design ideology when you
correct.
start off initially.
So it comes down with
Yeah,
experience.
but then it's more important to go with what is right for the client.
Yeah.
So you dress a person according to their body type. Any designer would do that, right? So that's what we should do. We should look at the client needs and requirements, and based on that, we should design that space. And not because I like it, that's why I'm doing this. It's not about you, and it's all about client.
Client.
Yeah,
So
but
ultimately, it's all about what the client needs rather than what he
yeah, which he
wants.
might also not know
He
at
might not
times.
know.
But yeah, it's a challenge
Yeah.
to understand what he wants.
Correct.
So that is where, if you can get that pulse, you can nail a project. But yeah, sometimes the client could be much more stubborn. So a good project takes a good designer, but it takes an equally good client.
Client.
You cannot have a good project with just a good designer and not a good client. Because to
Correct.
understand that also, you require a decent, a good, well, basically a good client. Otherwise, that communication, if it's not there, it will never result into anything good or great, basically.
So I want to ask the question of the century. Where do you find these good clients? Like, how do you find these? Like you
Yeah.
said, a good designer needs an equally good client. ये यही तो problem है. Like lead generation.
Nay, you need to mold them. A lot of them are actually open to ideas, but it's just that somehow sometimes we also are not open as designers. We believe, oh, he wants that and we are giving him that. But do you? I really don't call it a risk, but for a lot of people it is. But you need to tell them, no, this does not work for you. You should know yourself and be confident of your work and tell them that this is not right. You need to do this. And most of the times, if you give proper justification, the client will listen. And there would be few, तो वो तो हर profession में.
So so I mean, so as designers, we are not supposed to advertise as such.
Yeah.
We can, of course, put our work on the website. We can, go on social media. But do you think that'll give you lead generation? Like only just putting up work on the website or talking on Instagram or maybe LinkedIn. I mean,
Website, of course, yes, because it shows the range, the body of your work.
yeah, yeah.
So that, and it's something where you are saying what you want to say. And not edited by somebody else in the way they want it to. So website definitely is a place where having your own website is definitely a way to go. But I feel beyond that, social media, I would say, gives you an opportunity to be a known face. If eventually you you go viral and whatever.
Yeah.
But
If you're
you
good at
can
editing skills and
you never know what works in today's
yeah,
day.
yeah,
Anything goes
yeah,
viral
yeah.
nowadays. So so basically it's good to get to that status, but somebody investing their time, energy, money in you just because of that fame
Yeah.
is, I don't think it's possible. You might get that initial what do you say, opportunity to pitch for a project because you're a known name and the client might know you, but it will take a lot more than just being a known name to get a project because
Yeah.
that requires trust. So like especially in case of architects and interior designers, I would say, like, you place your hands, basically you place your life in with your doctor's hand, in your doctor's hand, basically. But similarly, you're putting your hard-earned money, something, people don't make 10 houses in their lifetime. At least normal people don't, right? So it's like your once in a life, or something which is very precious to you. So naturally, people think a lot more than they're just being a known name doing it for you.
Yeah, so that's what we are leading. That a website is definitely yes. So
Yes.
even if even if a person is right about starting, that person can also make a website, show his maybe portfolio he can show.
Yes, yes,
He or she can
definitely.
show the portfolio. But just going viral on Instagram, putting in reels, becoming a known face won't help ultimately. It won't give you clients basically.
Yes, that
So
won't
I
happen.
actually, yeah, I mean, if I'm a client, or if I'm searching for a doctor, or as we said, I will never go on Instagram and find who's viral. I'll probably search on another search engine, maybe maybe interior designers near me or something like that. Yeah, actually, yeah, that makes sense now. Because nowadays people have this, there are so many interior designers,
Actually, referral works best over here.
referrals, client
Yeah. So
referrals,
basically, if
word
your
of mouth, word
friend,
of mouth.
yes, if your friend or a relative has done
Yeah,
work with you, you tend to trust that person. Even while searching for doctors, don't we ask our
opinions.
friend and
Yeah,
family, basically to tell us a good doctor? Good here means something whom you can trust. So trust becomes the most important. So trusting somebody जिसका background नहीं पता है becomes a lot more difficult versus where somebody in your known circle has experienced working that with that person. So here I feel referrals work the best.
in our interior design business, referrals
Yes.
work the best. Okay. So
Yes.
other than, so yeah, as you said, there's an upper hand for the people who are on Instagram, but ultimately your work will have to, make up for it.
It's like what you want out of the profession.
Yeah.
Do you want real projects or you want fame? For lucky few, probably both works,
Yeah.
but not
Yeah.
for the majority of
Not for
ones.
the majority. So, I mean, yeah. So nowadays, a lot of, at least the amateurs, they generally put their work up, rigorously
But
on the,
it's a
yeah,
very nice platform to share work with your other design
other
buddies.
it builds a
Yeah.
community.
Yes,
Correct.
it's like in
Yeah,
community.
yeah,
So
yeah.
knowing, oh, acha, this person is doing this. So, oh yeah, I can also look. Basically, it provides a lot more inspiration, and it's like sharing of ideas. So that for that, if you're using social media, I think
It's
it's
the
a
best.
brilliant
Yeah, yeah.
kind of a platform. So that, yes, I'm always interested to know what my peers are doing, what the other architects are doing, and with social media, I get to know their first hand what they feel about the project because it's something which is within their control. It's not edited, like I said earlier. So
Websites.
something which, yeah, website, but this is updated regularly or maybe in a very shorter period of time. Comparatively, updating a website is a much more tedious task.
Yeah, yeah.
So this, their day-to-day life they share, as in whatever design processes they are going through. So knowing that is also very interesting for me. So for that, if you're using social media, I think it's a great community experience. We do learn a lot from each other.
All right. So moving on. So there's this. So this was one of the questions which our students also ask us. What are the tools, softwares which offices use? Like, what software is better?
I would say AutoCAD and SketchUp is like basics. Without it, you're handicapped. So
Okay, being
you
a
have
designer,
to,
handicap.
yeah,
Correct.
at least an interior designer
Yeah,
or
yeah.
a architect, if you're looking within that design bracket, I would say you need to know your AutoCAD and you need to know SketchUp. So these two are basics. Beyond that, if you know a lot more programs, I would suggest for good working drawings, I would say, I just forgot the name.
Revit. Revit.
Revit, Revit, and a Rhino. And if you're interested in parametric, then the Grasshopper plugin within the Rhino. And I'm sure there might be a lot more new things happening. At least I am not aware of. So these are the few softwares which I feel you should.
And presentation wise, I mean, when you're going for client pitching, so that's another way of representing.
Yeah.
Just a working drawing is generally for contractors. Client pitching के लिए we do presentation drawings.
Yeah.
So those presentation drawings also are what
Of
kind
course,
of
you have this Microsoft presentation which is there, but I would say InDesign is also a very good software,
InDesign.
which of course needs to be worked upon Photoshop and all those
Yeah,
basic
yeah.
editing softwares which is there. So that definitely forms a part of it. So, but there, how you compose your ideas, how you place them, how you kind of connect the stories becomes more important. So, which I guess now kids do it since school. So
Yeah.
hopefully they do a better job, much better job than what we are doing. So
that's a good point you raised about stories.
uh-huh.
So how is storytelling important? Like, is it important to build a connection?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
We all are at the end of the day storytellers.
Yeah, yeah.
So basically, what is storytelling? It's conveying an idea. So that's what we are doing. We just have different mediums. It could be a painting, it could be a sculpture, it could be an installation, it could be a dress, it could be a piece of jewelry. It could be, for us, it is the build forms, build forms in architecture, interior design, product design, branding, everything. So, like in branding, also, you are kind of trying to convey what you want other people to think about the brand. So, unless and until you don't say a story, and a simplest form of conveying that is through telling a story. So that's what I think is the essence of any design. So story, I don't mean some fictional story over here. So you need to get a grip or understand what is required. The same thing, basically connecting all the dots for your client. So, these things are already there within. So you have site conditions, you have climatic conditions, you have local context, you have client requirements, you have client ka understanding, their ideologies. So connecting all these dots together, you form a story, and that's what your design is.
It's ultimately a form of storytelling. It's just that we have a different.
Our landscape is different, our brush
Our
is
brush is
different.
different.
That's all.
So, like now we are talking about this processes, design, but what about the business part of it, like earning money? Ultimately, our mode we live, it's our livelihood, it's our bread and butter. So, what
Yeah.
about the business strategies? Like a lot of okay, so nowadays when the moment you just type business, you'll get like endless posts on how to build a business, how to start up, because nowadays there's this trend of starting up on your own. Like everybody wants to be a leader. So how are those business strategies even relevant to us, like in our fraternity? Like they coin big terms like marketing skills, but I don't think any design college teaches us business analytics here. Like it's
Yeah,
different
it
for us.
doesn't. For actually speaking, I believe basic accounting and tax calculation should be a part of your school curriculum. But
Yeah,
surprisingly, it is not.
it's not.
At least in India, it is not. And I very strongly feel about it. So similarly, we luckily, at least in interiors and architecture, we do have professional practice. But as expected of any creative student, we really look down upon it, and they
Yeah,
are
yeah.
pretty bored. That's the secondary subject, which probably you just study it few hours before the exam.
But
That's what you end up
that's actually the
doing.
most important subject,
Yeah.
project management.
So creative and
Yeah.
everything is fine, but at the end of the day, it is your bread and butter. It is your business. And for any business, you need to follow certain rules. If you don't, it will probably do you more harm than good. So, and we are lucky enough that we have it as a subject, though it does not encompass completely in totality, it just gives you a brief glimpse. And I wish it was a little bit more in depth and it starts much earlier. But frankly, it is not. And maybe even if it is, the students probably at that age are not really ready. But before starting your own company, I would really suggest that you think about what kind of company you want. What basically there are different types of company. What are the taxation system? What kind of tax a certain kind of service is going to cost you? So all these clarity needs to be there. It's a very important basic thing, but everybody, at least including me, got into the profession, learned it the hard way with all the losses, and then kind of understood the whole nuances of it. I wouldn't say understand everything of it, but still decent stage. I'm at a decent stage compared to what I started with, but I think we should be thinking a lot more about it than just ignoring it as a subject which we need to clear.
Yeah. So professional practice, like we do have a subject, like
Yeah.
it comes right before your internship. So, I mean, even that becomes very, because the students are just clueless. 3 saal, they have just worked on a creative process. They've made projects and they don't know how the project is feasible. They don't know what would be the cost. They don't know budgeting in a way. They just do it one semester prior to your internship. And so how do you think that should
No, I think it's fine, because it's not as if when you go on your internship, you would learn about the business part. You're an
Yeah.
intern. You would still be doing simple jobs, simple things, either designing or doing working drawings or something similar when you go for your internship. Nobody is going to expose you to the business side of it. So
Yeah.
I think there is time for it to know it, at least theoretically, during your college time is important. So though I'm just saying that probably don't take it lightly. Try to understand it. Don't just ignore it,
Just
So
because it's not creative, that doesn't mean,
exactly.
because ultimately you have to execute the project on
Ha.
site.
So it's about
It's not on
understanding.
paper. Yeah.
Exactly. So understand what all things are there. When, if required, you will revisit it. And of course, nowadays it's not difficult to do that. But having not having a basic understanding would actually be harmful to you. So it would be your disadvantage. So it doesn't make any sense to ignore it. And okay, in the first few years, if you're I don't know, basically giving more importance to the creative side, because probably even after passing out, you're probably working somewhere rather than starting your own practice, which I strongly suggest you
So
should.
we shouldn't rush into starting your own company.
No,
You should.
that's a
Okay.
different thing if you have a project ready.
Yeah. Like you shouldn't, but you should, as far as
Yeah.
possible, you should take an experience in a office setup
Yeah.
and then go ahead.
So at least the way I see, so understanding the practicality becomes a lot more important. Executing real-time project is a different ball game. It's not just about designing, executing, the teamwork, connecting it to or transferring what you want to do to the contractors and making sure that the contractors do it
Okay,
also.
let's come to contractors. So I think that's a different business altogether.
Yeah.
Because till probably even लोगों का तो internship भी खत्म हो जाता है, still they have not like had this face to face interaction with a contractor.
Yeah.
How does that work with us? Like I'm sure a lot of people have had various experiences when it comes to contractors. Any experience you've had, like you'd like to share, or have you heard of some experience for that matter?
No, I guess everybody has their experiences with dealing with a contractor. First of all, sadly, in our country, most of the contractors which we come through are not from a very educated background. I wouldn't say all, but most of them.
Yeah.
So, that doesn't mean that they are not knowledgeable. They are very knowledgeable. A lot of senior ones are. So there's a lot to learn from them. But their way of understanding things and the way we understand things is different. So finding that common language within becomes a difficult task. And somewhere down the line, you have to make a lot more effort. So initially, if you start going and establishing that you're the designer and you know things, no, you should be humble and learn. But that doesn't mean that you should let them override. So
And
finding
they
that
have a
balance,
tendency to override because
finding that balance is
yeah,
important.
yeah.
So, but also, I would say here, at least in India, that's what I have experienced. Being a woman is a little bit of disadvantage because we have a patriarchal society, so it's not easy for the contractors to kind
Take
of
orders from a woman designer. Yeah,
yeah,
that
so
might be an issue.
sometimes, yeah, it becomes a challenge to make sure the contractor understands, listens, and respects you. So, but you have to be, but once they understand that you're here for business and you know your job, then it's okay. Then nothing happens, and basically it's an easy flow from there. But to get that initial thing,
To establish that you're
yes,
here for
yes,
business.
yes.
So being a designer also, like I've when you're in office, you're just like, I want to, be a better, I want to have the associate position, or I want to go ahead and start my own company. So there's this constant, so that's what they're not living in the present. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of designers are not living in the present. They're not designing for today. They're just like, what I'll do in the next 5 years, or I want to start my own company, or I want to go ahead and start a bigger project. I want to pitch for a bigger client. So I think my advice, like after this conversation, my advice would be one should take a pause, be in the process, have a year or two after your internship, understand what the process is, then take up a step and understand its pros and cons, feasibility, non feasibility. See, not
True.
everybody can start a company, not
Mm-hmm.
everybody is well equipped with the knowledge, or they have the resources or the influence for that
Mm-hmm.
matter. So I think they should just take a pause, contemplate, and then understand that how it's going to work. Because I mean,
True.
so like I see on Instagram also, I mean, people have just like students, they've just come out of internship, and they have their own Instagram page where they show that, this is my own company, my own projects. So I think it's a bit of a rush, is what I have seen, or there's just a rush to achieve faster goals. So I think very well you've mentioned that, smaller
Mm-hmm.
goals, smaller milestones.
Mm.
I think that will take you ahead in your design journey.
Yeah.
And so I think that worked out for you also.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.